Hello, hello, hello. Oh my gosh, you guys, how are you? I hope you're having a great, there you are. I know, my watch changed the apps on us. All right, hey guys, I'm Alexandra Harbushka. I'm founder of Life With Herpes. I have been talking about herpes since 2017. It's been a minute, right? I've been doing this for a while. My goal here is to support you. I know what it feels like when we're diagnosed with herpes. It is a very miserable situation. Not only are we physically in pain, we are emotionally in pain. We feel ostracized, we feel wounded, we feel betrayed, and most of all, we feel like we're alone. And so that's why I created Life with Herpes, so that we can educate each other and support each other through this journey of living with herpes and then life beyond herpes, right? Because that's really the goal here. There is something else beyond herpes. When we're first diagnosed, we really identify with this like cloud hanging over us. I like to call it the Eeyore phase. And as we know, Eeyore is the donkey in Winnie the Pooh who just kind of ho-hums along. He has a rain cloud over him all the time, and he just living life, right? No excitement, no love, no joy, unlike Winnie the Pooh. So what I like to describe when we're first diagnosed with herpes is the Eeyore phase. It is a very painful, lonely phase. So it is my goal to get us out of this Eeyore phase. I don't want us to avoid this Eeyore phase. It's a really important part of going through our journey of being diagnosed with herpes. But what I do want is for us to get out of this Eeyore phase. I was stuck there for 2 years. Hi from Ice Swallow. That's funny. I just fell for that. That's funny. Anyways, I was stuck in the Eeyore phase for 2 years, and it was really, really hard. I was in a relationship that wasn't healthy. I was struggling with my health. I was struggling with, not because of herpes, because of other things like binge eating, things like that. And I was like, all right, I got to get out of this phase. I do not want to be in my 30s living with regrets and living without a focus and a purpose. So that is why I am here. I don't want any of you to be stuck there. Hi from Wisconsin. What's up? I'm in Las Vegas. Wisconsin, is it cold today? Probably, huh? You guys are not, you're not there. From Cincinnati. I have never been to Cincinnati. I've been to Wisconsin. Never been to Cincinnati. All right, so let's talk about herpes. What type of questions do you guys have when it comes, to herpes? I've been getting lots of questions, not bad. You're in the 40s. 40s are fun. 40s are like, you can look cute with your little coat and your hat, you know. I'm okay with 40s. I actually wish it was more in the 40s here in Las Vegas during the winter, but it's more like the 50s. What would happen if you don't tell anyone you have herpes? That's a great question. And there's a lot of misunderstanding around that. There's a lot of doctors that were under the influence that herpes could only be transmitted when you have an outbreak. And that was the message that was the truth, because that was as far as the technology went probably about 30 years ago. So if you were diagnosed way back, or you would talk to someone who had their education from a while ago, that was the correct information. However, we now know that herpes can be transmitted really anytime the virus is active, meaning when you're having an active outbreak, obviously, number one, and number two, when the virus is shedding. And that's kind of the like, uh-oh thing. And that's why we need to disclose, is we don't know when the virus is shedding. It's kind of like this silent thing. There's no signs, there's no symptoms, there's no itch, there's no tingle, there's no blister, there's no cut, there's no anything going on. We have no idea as hosts when the virus is shedding. And the virus sheds just like any other living organism. I put my hands through my hair. I got a hair out. I don't know if you can see it. My hair sheds, right? I can rub my eyes and get some tears. I can scratch my skin and some skin cells will fall off. Flowers lose their petals. Trees lose their leaves. Everything sheds, right? It's just part of it. So just like any other living virus or living organism, the herpes virus wants to shed its DNA. So that's also when we're contagious. It's when the virus is active. So that's a really good thing. That's really why we want to disclose that we have herpes. So what happens if we don't disclose we have herpes? The person may never get herpes, which is obviously the goal here. But the person most likely and can get herpes. I personally feel if this is a relationship, if this is someone that you want to build a foundation with, you can't build a foundation on lies or mistrust. Once that trust is broken, once those lies have been broken, it really takes a lot to put back together. So if you're going to have a long-term relationship with this person, they're going to find out about it. I'm a true believer that the truth always comes out. So eventually down the road, the truth will come out. So somehow down the road, this person will find out that you have herpes, and then you have a bigger fish to fry than that. So there's betrayal, lack of trust, all that. So I'm a big proponent on disclosure. I'm a big proponent on telling the truth. Again, that may hurt. It may be the more difficult thing to do. It may be all sorts of things like that. But at the end, like, you may not suffer, but you may have lots of rejection, like, oh, you have herpes, gross. But you get to see the true colors of who people really are. So again, I'm a big proponent of disclosing. You're having a really hard time dating. With disclosing or with being accepted, what do you mean, Bobby? As far as dating, I think dating can be really fun. It can also be really challenging if we put lots of expectations on it. We just put so much pressure on ourselves to find the one, or not waste time, or get out there, or my heart's broken, or there's only the ones out there, the good ones are taken, or blah, 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 blah. And I think that those are just myths. And that's a lot of times what we like to tell ourselves. If dating is something that is difficult, I actually took a dating class. Believe it or not, this is during my Eeyore phase. This is during my herpes journey. Again, I was turning 30. I had herpes. I was dating the wrong guy, or there was like no one really out there. So I actually took a self-improvement class. It's called Calling in the One. You can buy the book, or I think you can still enroll for classes. It really was beneficial. I learned a lot about manifestation. I learned a lot about some conditioning I potentially had about relationships, marriages, why I wanted one, why I didn't want one. I recommend that to anybody who's dating, herpes or not. Number one, you have to love yourself and trust yourself, and you have to break down a lot of the shit you picked up along the way. I believed, prior to going through this, I didn't realize it, but I believed that true love maybe really didn't happen. For my generation, I believed that guys either cheated on you, gave you herpes, stood you up, were just into you for one thing, which is not the truth at all, right? There's a lot of great guys out there, my husband being one of them. And I'm sure, all of you have these preconceived notions about somebody, or whatever it is, whether it was your parents or something you've picked up along the way from people you've dated. And you really have to just acknowledge it and realize it and make those changes. So that's what I did with dating. And I really recommend that's something you do with dating, whether you're dating with herpes or not. Can shedding happen to men? Yes, shedding happens to both men and women. The longer you have the virus, the less shedding will happen. So you shed majority of the time when the virus is new in your body, but it does happen. Isn't disclosing a deal breaker? So for me, or in general, there's a lot of people that don't disclose. I do know a lot of people that are in relationships that have not disclosed to their partner. Months, years, weddings down the road, they still haven't disclosed. And I think that puts a lot of pressure. What if you get an outbreak? What are you going to say to a spouse of 10 years? Then if you say, well, I've had herpes, well, what else aren't you telling me? So yeah, I personally think non-disclosure is a deal breaker in a relationship if you want that relationship. But do others accept it, or I think it would be a deal breaker? You will be accepted for having herpes. The thing is yeah, it definitely is like a shock at first, especially if it's your first time disclosing, especially if it depends on how you disclose. A lot of times I think that we get rejected for herpes when either the person is immature about sexual health, that you can be 18 or you can be, 48, 58, 68. If you're immature about sexual health, then yeah, that could be a rejection. A lot of times people are not educated in sexual health. We have this big preconceived notion about what STIs or herpes are, how someone gets it or who has it. So when we start to educate people about it when we're disclosing, I think that's one of the best ways to do it. Another great thing that I like to recommend when disclosing is talk about sexual health and the importance of sexual health to you. So let's go get tested, things like that. Not like, hey, I have herpes, will you accept me? No, that's probably not going to be the strongest way to go at it. But yeah, absolutely, you will be accepted. You will learn right away if somebody's really interested in you for you, or if they're just interested in a one-night stand or just tapping that ass, right? Disclosing's been super hard. It is hard because it's basically putting your heart out there, saying like, hey, I really like you, I want to be with you, but before we do this, I need acceptance. Like, we need to discuss this. We have to remember, though, that anyone we disclose to, he or she has something that we need to accept about them as well. It may not be an STI, but it could be something else that may be a bigger deal breaker, maybe a bigger thing. There's personality traits, there's traumas that could have happened in someone's life, things like that we need to accept. How did your husband take it when I told him? I actually told him before we were dating. So, and then we dated like 4 years later, maybe 5 years, I don't remember. But yeah, he took it. When I first told him, he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, how can I help you? Anything I can do to support you? What do you need? So he was really helpful in that side. And then when we started dating and I brought that up again, like, hey, before we start dating, just a reminder, do you remember this? And he's like, yeah, I don't care. That's the least of our concerns. And we talked about it. He really wanted to know information about it, which is fair, and of course, but he didn't care, right? Hard to get back where I was. I don't know what you mean by that. Do they ask you questions? Is this when you disclose, or are you being asked questions? When did I tell my husband? We talked, so I told him like way before we started dating. And then when we started dating, we had a lot, we laid everything out on the table to discuss dating. It wasn't, we wanted to jump into each other's arms and like make mad passionate love and that whole thing, but there were a lot of other things on the table that needed to be discussed. So we actually laid everything out and discussed it, herpes including, and talked about it that way. So again, this was a relationship that we both knew we wanted to be in. I had known him 4 to 5 years prior to dating him. I can talk about ex-boyfriends when I disclosed. That was a little bit different. I'm trying to remember what one guy in particular, I dated him for like 3 months before I disclosed. And we weren't sleeping together. We were just dating. We were in the whole courting, and we go to yoga and go out for dinners. And like, we actually did New Year's together. I spent the night, but there was no interaction as far as sex or intimacy, so there was no need to disclose. I was in that phase of like, is this somebody I want to be with? Is somebody I want to sleep with? And the disclosure went great. There's other disclosures that were just about sex, and it didn't go well. There were other disclosures that I would use to get out of sex, and unfortunately it went really well. I'm like, darn, you're still calling me. So again, you really just don't know, and you have to understand the other person's perspective as well, and don't hold it against them. Can you take the antivirals on a place as a carry-on? Oh, on a plane as a carry-on with that question? Yeah, I've flown with them all the time. You are supposed to travel with the drug or vitamin in its original case or caps, whatever it's called, bottle, I guess, because if something were to happen to you, they'd want to know what's in there. So like if you have serious issues, if it was like a heart issue or some certain medications, if you had an emergency, they'd want to make sure like, what are you taking? But for as far as valcyclovir, herpes medication is not a big deal. It's not like life-threatening. I don't think it interacts with other drugs. I don't know, but I don't think it does. Yeah, you can travel with it, no problem. I travel with it all the time. But that's a great question. I haven't been asked that. Let's see if you have any more questions. I've been getting lots of questions also in our support group. So we have the Life with Herpes Secret Society. It is an online community for people living with herpes. And we have the chat going. It's a private Slack group. Anyways, someone in the group, I'm so excited. She just mentioned that she's pregnant. It made my day. And we've been talking for about a year about this. So she has had a lot of questions about pregnancy, and that is a question I get a lot about because I was pregnant with herpes, and I was vocal about my pregnancy and herpes and having a vaginal delivery. So that is something that's absolutely possible. It's something that you're going to definitely want to talk to your doctor about and get on the same page. Every doctor is going to have a different set of rules or different things that he or she feels comfortable with. You also need to see like, what does the father feel like? You know, what does he feel comfortable with? In my case, my husband felt comfortable with it, knowing that my doctor felt comfortable with it, and knowing that we was on the antiviral and did not have an outbreak. So I was told by my doctor with no outbreak and being on the antiviral, I had a less than 1% chance of transferring herpes to my baby during delivery. So that's something I felt comfortable with. All right, my friends. Oh, when you first got them, did you get flu-like symptoms? Yeah, I did. It was like full-on flu, something's not right. When I got HSV1, I actually had to go to the emergency room. I was so dehydrated, so sick, high fever, just very, very sick, very flu-like symptoms. And with HSV2, I didn't have as severe, but I couldn't sit down. My groin was swollen. I was covered with lesions everywhere. I was kind of like sickish for about 2 weeks. It was pretty miserable. Yeah, that is very common. Okay, I will see you soon. Hopefully tomorrow. Have a great day, guys. Keep asking your questions in the Q&A. I do respond to them. I do love them. They make my day. So keep asking your questions there.